Welcome to Chris Strub Unmuted. I'm Chris Strub, and today we're talking about manifestation. I deserved better things in life. I deserved better living circumstances. I deserved a better social circle. I deserved better income. I deserved a better home, and I think that now that I'm 40 years old, it's time to really open up and share on a podcast like this. This is Chris Strub Unmuted, a show designed for open dialogue, honest reflection, and uncensored truth about the lives that we lead. Today's episode looks at manifestation. And we're talking about personal manifestation, the life that you want to lead. Now, I am not some crazy pie in the sky personal coach by any means. But I am really proud of the life that I've been able to build here in Greenville, South Carolina over the last decade plus now. Now, I'm not from Greenville. In fact, I'm not from the South at all. Born and raised on Long Island, New York. Went to school at Binghamton University and spent much of my 20s honestly withering away at a job that was largely unfulfilling, had no real future to it, had no upward mobility, and decided during that decade, we're really summarizing a lot here, that I deserved more in life. I deserved better things in life. I deserved better living circumstances. I deserved a better social circle. I deserved better income. I deserved a better home, and I think that now that I'm 40 years old, drink to that. Now that I'm 40 years old, it's time to really open up and share on a podcast like this, experiences and ideas and thought processes that helped me get to where I am today. And it's wild recording this here at the end of 2025 to be released beginning of 2026, thinking about how different life is and the world is today than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I know that sounds really cliche to talk about, but it's really true. And we'll get into in different episodes and different conversations, some of the work that I did back in the 2010s and even the 2000s, and how some of that work helped shape where I am today. But what's important today is to think about the broader idea of manifestation and how that thought process and weaving that thought process through every decision that you make in life can help bring you to where you want to be. And I decided to start a podcast not because I'm exactly where I want to be, but I think that I can share some lessons from the growth journey that I've been on over the years to get here, for a lot of different reasons. Right? I'm a distance runner, and when you're in that space, on social media and even in real life, you see yourself comparing what you can do to others. And the reality is there's always going to be people faster or stronger or more successful than you in your space, especially if you're living life online. But there's also a lot of people who dream of having everything that you have as their ultimate goals. And this year, 2025, I was able to buy a house. I was able to adopt a puppy. I was able to run a half marathon in my 50th state. And even bigger picture than that, I was able to make it to 40 years old. And when you think about the challenges that especially young men face these days, sometimes just making it to that next milestone birthday is a success of its own. So I want to welcome you to this first season of Chris Strub Unmuted. We'll really dive into, through this podcast series, why I chose that title, why the idea of feeling unmuted is important, why it's important to be able to open up and share your story and use your voice and create. I can talk to you for hours about the watershed changes in the social media space since I really got involved in this industry. Yes, I am still here, Google Meet. We might need a different recording avenue. This is how things get started, right? Ready, fire, aim, as my buddy Madeline Sklar likes to say. Ready, fire, aim. I think that it's really important to remind you here in this opening episode and in this opening season that the power of manifestation is real. It's important to think about your own mindset and understand that you are the captain of that ship, that you are the one who drives your own identity, that you are the one who drives your own success. And yes, we're going to talk about everything in this podcast. I got a lot to talk about. I got lots of C4 to chug here. Hashtag not sponsored yet, but we'll get there. Ultimately, the person who defines who you are is you. You are in charge of your own show, your own life, and everything that you do in life comes down to the decisions that you make. I'm a big believer in the power of manifestation, right? I knew coming into 2025 that I wanted to buy a house. This was my goal for this year. Finally, I was 39 back at the start of 2025, and the goal was to be in my own house for my birthday in August of 2025, turning 40. And this year presented a lot of really unique and unexpected challenges. And we're going to do a full separate episode on exactly how I was able to make that happen specifically. But the bigger picture here is this. When you think about where you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, the what becomes less important. It's not so much about what you're doing, especially on a day-to-day basis. It's about the decisions that you make. It's about the place that you see yourself in the world. And it's about understanding that you're going to do the things that are required of you to achieve those goals. I've always had that mindset, right? If I set a big goal, that comes first. And then along that pathway, you're going to figure out what are the things that you need to do and change and adjust and learn from to get to where you want to go. And it's important to acknowledge and recognize that you might not know all of those steps right off the bat. In fact, I know that you won't know all of those steps right off the bat. I certainly haven't with any of the big goals that I've set over the years, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it. But you're listening to this podcast, you're watching these clips, you're tuned into Chris Strub Unmuted because you recognize that you deserve better, that you deserve the things that you dream of, that you deserve the success that you aspire to accomplish. And my hope is that this episode gives you that reassurance that it's okay to not know all of the steps that you need to follow to get where you want to go. It's also my hope that this episode reminds you and encourages you that it's okay to set those big goals. You know, you're not going to achieve things that you can't imagine, right? Life is not a lottery system. You're not going to wake up one day and have just all of these magical things happen to you. Those things happen because of the work that you put in. You know, good luck doesn't just appear in midair. And what I've learned as I've gotten older is that good luck and success, as it's defined, however you want to define it, is an accumulation of those many things that you've done along the way to get to where you want to go. Right? And that's been really, really frustrating for me when I think about manifestation over the years. I don't think that the philosophy that I had on this was a lot different 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. I mean, I remember December 1999, right before the turn of the millennium, when we all thought that all of our computers were going to permanently crash and burn forever, when the year flipped from 1999 to 2000. And I remember feeling that entrepreneurial spirit. I was like, man, I'd love to, start a lemonade stand or some sort of brand, launch a brand. I was 14 at the time. I want to start some kind of brand to be able to say 50 years from now that this brand has been around since the 1990s. I acknowledge it's one of my earliest, childhood entrepreneurial memories. And this is way before I even knew that I wanted to get into this solopreneurial approach to life. But thinking long-term about your legacy, who you are, what you want to accomplish is a very good thing. And I would go on in those later teenage years to be voted by my high school classmates most likely to be remembered. Was voted most likely to be remembered. And I take that responsibility very seriously. It's been more than 20 years now, and I'm still working on that goal of being most likely to be remembered. I don't think that I was really on that path so much in the 2010s, especially the early 2010s. But eventually you wake up. And for me, that awakening happened at age 28. And again, I think I'm foreshadowing a lot of individual episodes to come here. I don't want to just spill all the details here in the very first episode that we're recording here. But for me, it took to age 28 to wake up. And that's tough to acknowledge, because as you get older, you realize just how valuable time is and how increasingly valuable time becomes as you get older, because you realize there's only so much time that we all have left on this earth. So that time, especially in your 20s, is the time to manifest. It is the time to imagine the person that you want to be. And don't wait till you're 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. I mean, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to think about a lot of the things that I did and the time that I wasted, often being wasted in my 20s, especially mid 20s. And what I hope to be able to do with a podcast like this ultimately is to inspire people of any age to think about how manifestation is going to help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve in life. And again, look, I'm not trained in this at all. I'm not a coach. I'm not pretending to be a coach. A lot of you guys that are listening to this or watching this, in January or sometime, down the line, I want you to listen to what I say through the lens of whatever experience it was that introduced you to Chris Strub in the past. And that could be that zero moment of truth. Someone told you on social media while you're laying there on your back on your phone in bed, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Someone told you, hey, check out this Chris Strub guy. Okay. That's fine. Cool. Welcome to the family. Come on in, like and subscribe, right? But for me, the last, I'm going to say 12 years in particular, have been chock full of these amazing, unique experiences that are difficult to wrap up into one tiny little ball. The people that are listening to this podcast have likely encountered Chris Strub in your own unique way. And there's lots of different places that I've been over the years. There's lots of different experiences that I've had, good and bad. There's lots of different jobs that I've worked. There's lots of different bars that I've sat at around the United States, even over in the UK. Like, there's so many different places where you might have encountered Chris Strub. And I want you to know that every single one of those experiences along the way has led me, and hopefully you, to this point. This is Chris Strub Unmuted. And I've got a trillion stories to tell, but the most important thing to do with this podcast is to think about how those stories, how those experiences, how those interactions, how those lessons learned that I've learned over the last 40 years now. I drink every time I say 40. C4. I should call it C40. We'll hit it straight, no ice. "40 years of amalgamated experiences, ideas, failures, mistakes made, lessons learned. If this podcast, both this episode and all the future episodes that I hope you'll tune in, subscribe to, listen to, if the lessons that I've learned the hard way over the last 40 years, any of them, can help you, whatever age you are, manifest to become even 1% more of the person that you dream of becoming before you die, then this podcast is a success. Thanks for listening to Chris Strub Unmuted. Support the show by clicking like and subscribe. Keep up with me on social media at Chris Strub. And remember, we are all famous to a few people.